Greetings and felicitations.
Hip, hip, hurrah, tally-ho.
Hey, baby, I've had this blinking light on my hand for a number of years now. How about you?
Yeah, me too. I don't know how we've lived so long.
I guess we've been good at running away from the Sandmen.
Yeah.
Okay, we could be talking about none other than this epic 1976 sci-fi classic, Logan's Run. I didn't see it in the movie theater. Obviously, I was too young. How about you?
No, I didn't either. I saw it on TV sometime.
So did I. My dad recommended it. I didn't know any other kids in school that watch it. My dad said, "This is awesome. Got to watch it when it comes on." And, to him, he was not a fan of action or space adventure, but he did like science fiction. And this falls, I'd say, pre-1977 science fiction movies were more science fiction based as opposed to space adventure based. And we know why.
Right, yeah. 1977 was when Star Wars came out, and that changed everything. So yeah, the movies before that So the movies before that really had a different feel.
So I had to be, I'm going to say maybe third, fourth grade, something like that. And the idea of having to die at 30 years old, it seemed so far away to me that I was like, no big deal. But now I'm like, okay, interesting concept. I never read the book. Did you read the book?
No, I didn't.
I know they had to change some things from the book to the movie. One of the major things being, in the book it was 21 years old that you would die, whereas in the movie they made it 30. Apparently they felt that having someone that was just past the teenage years dying, audiences wouldn't like it. It would be too close, especially coming after the Vietnam War, of having young people die, so they moved it up to 30.
Which made sense.
It totally made sense. Let's talk about the specifics of the movie. It was directed by Michael Anderson, produced by Saul David, based on a book by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson. We're familiar with George Clayton Johnson's work from
Star Trek, the original. He wrote Man Trap.
Yes, which was not a computer episode.
Right.
And we're going to talk about the connections when we're watching the movie with Star Trek. But starring Michael York, Jenny Agutter, Richard Jordan. Interesting, when we watched the credits at the end of the movie, the credits swept by pretty quickly because there were very few speaking roles in the movie. Roscoe Lee Brown, Farrah Fawcett, and Peter Ustinov. Music by another Star Trek connection, Jerry Goldsmith. Yes, absolutely. Produced by MGM Studios. Running time was roughly 2 hours. Budget was roughly $8 million, but the box office took in $25 million. So definitely was a financial and critical success. When you first saw it when you were a kid, what did you think about it?
I mean, at the time, I already knew that the movie was popular, but I thought it was a good movie. I liked it.
Did you watch it on your own, or did someone encourage you to watch it? Did you watch it with someone else?
No, I just watched it on my own by myself.
Okay. A lot of curious things as we watched it when we were younger. We compared. That's what we do with a lot of the subject matter that we talk about, whether it be articles in Starlog magazine or action figures or any of our retroactive viewings of things, because we're rewatching a lot of this stuff and we're kind of comparing what were our emotional connections to it as a child and why do we feel that it's so necessary to rewatch this years later. Like I said, dying at 30 seems so far off when I was younger, but I also was pretty amazed at the special effects. Even though I would have watched this in the early 80s, we look at it now and it seems dated but not bad. I think it was a solid effort.
Yes, it is after an apocalypse on Earth. So they can make those any way they want. So if the costumes look a certain way, it'll still be fitting for the movie and not look dated to us.
Mm-hmm. I did like the matte paintings. I thought many of them were beautiful. The ice scenes, apparently they filmed a lot in Dallas, so it did have that futuristic feeling to it.
There was so much happening because they're from the city and then going out of the city. I mean, that they had to go into the ice scene and then later to Washington, D.C. Very, very big changes in scenery there.
Now, as we were watching it, we noticed comparisons to two other major franchises. You just mentioned Washington, D.C., so what did those scenes make you reminisce about?
Now, actually, we both said, like, wow, it reminds us of Planet of the Apes.
Absolutely.
When they saw the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, it was the Lincoln statue.
Memorial,
yes.
Mm-hmm. And also, there are aspects of it that remind us of Star Trek, original series Star Trek episodes.
At the end, when the Sandman was sitting at the computer and being interrogated, and basically he destroyed the computer with something it couldn't understand, which happens so many times on Star Trek.
Totally. It's something Captain Kirk would do. Like, are you of the body, Landru? Landru, if I'm not the body, you can't be. I mean, that's the type of that Kirk Fu with his words that Michael York used. I still, watching as an adult, I still love it. I love the carousel scene was amazing, and I still remember the feelings of watching that as a kid, saying, "This is crazy awesome."
They actually wanted that scene to be elaborate for the film, and what I heard is that it wasn't that way in the book, or I don't even think they had the carousel in the book. It was just something they added for the movie to make the death scene look something awe-inspiring. Like it was a big spectacle, and so the audience is supposed to. You know how the audience was cheering in the movie, which I thought was weird. The people are dying and the audience is cheering.
But it gives the idea, though there are certain aspects of the movie that weren't very clear, but the idea was that they would rejuvenate, so they were celebrating death because they would live on another life. So I was getting the feeling of it was more of a reincarnation celebration to a degree. Did you get that?
Yeah. Once I thought about it, and of course, after reading something about it, then so that is what they're supposed to think. They're thinking that the people are reincarnated, so that's why they're celebrating it.
But the way that the hockey masks look, their outfits, it was pretty. For a young person, it was terrifying. Like I really thought it was kind of eerie. We have a couple of friends that at their 30th birthday, they actually had celebrations like that. They themselves dressed in that gear and asked other participants to come either with a black shirt with a gray stripe around it or scantily clad clothing of red, yellow, or green. I mean, how cool is that to have a 30th birthday party with a Logan's Run theme?
It sounds like fun. I mean, you could say it's demented too, but I mean, it sounds fun. I mean, it's like I wish I had thought of that. Oh,
me too. I didn't think of it. No, what's interesting is that we look at the film, and it took me a little while to figure it out why they were wearing the colors that they were wearing. So it seems like if you were from childhood to roughly 10 years old, you would wear yellow clothing. From 11 to 20, it would be green. And then past that, you'd wear red.
Yes,
the whole society was wearing those colors.
So you showed your age by your color, and really, and people even like they gladly gave out their age. You know how Logan kept saying 6 red, which meant 26. I mean, at first I was.
That was the key. You had to add the number to the color, and that would be your age.
But he kept saying, "I'm Red 6," and at first I was thinking that's his name. I'm going, okay, he's Red 6, and then then they were calling him Logan, and I was like, okay, so what's his name? But his name was Logan. His age was Red 6.
Yep, exactly. So I like that aspect of it. Very impressed with the idea of being born with that jewel in your hand and how it changes colors over time. I love that concept.
I think the jewel was put in the baby's
hand. In the baby's hand,
I think they put it there, right?
Because they weren't even born in the womb. They were born outside the room, right?
I'm not even sure that. Yeah, they were talking at the beginning of the movie, and I was
And
trying
then
to
the
remember
old man,
what they said.
well, they were asking the old man later on, like, you mean you were born inside your mother's belly? Because he kept pointing.
That's
He's
right.
like, yes,
Yeah.
So like that was a foreign concept to him.
And they don't even have the idea of parents, mother and father, or marriage, or anything.
Yes. So it's a completely different society. I mean, you talk about that they have no concept of family, marriage. All they did all day was have sex. Really. I look back at this. I look back at this and say, okay, there was no rating on the movie, and I guess they modernized it to be PG. So if I saw it on television first and you saw it on television first, they cut back all the nudity scenes and the sex scenes, I'm going to assume. But we watch it now in the original theatrical version, and you're like, there's nobody working here. Everybody just wants to get laid all the time.
Well, the Sandmen are working.
They're the only. You're right. They're the only ones. Besides them, and afterwards, it's no like hobbies or anything else. Just like, okay, we'll go into the pool and after that, get it on.
Jessica met with her friends. I mean, there's a big mall area or something, and they sit and talk. I mean, so that's something. I'm just saying they do have friends, apparently. Mm-hmm. I mean, because
with
Logan
benefits.
did, yeah. But yeah, you had Logan the way he met Jessica, when she was, what did they call it, the dating thing, whatever.
I know, yeah.
Where he picks a person. But then we find out those people were there willingly, supposedly. He asked Jessica, well, why did you put yourself there if you didn't want to do this?
So that, I mean, just think about the beautiful thing of looking at science fiction of the past is to see, did any of this really come true in the future? And that was like the dating app of that time.
Yes, you see the person, and all you do is look at them and decide whether or not you want to invite them in. Yes.
So for that time, that must have been a very unique concept. Now it's a common thing, dating apps.
Yes, or looking at a picture of someone and looking at their bio.
Exactly. Interesting that Farrah Fawcett, this was right at the beginning of her becoming famous.
Yes, and this movie came out the same year that Charlie's Angels started, but it came out before Charlie's Angels. Mm-hmm. And that is interesting. I think people did like seeing her in this movie. I think they did know who she was back then. And I mean, this added to her fame at the time.
Mm-hmm. You were a huge Charlie's Angels fan, so I mean, this was that whole era of the late 70s. When she came on the scene, she exploded. I mean, she became a superstar fairly quickly.
But yeah, I think this was might have been one of Farrah's first movies, right? And she and it was really a small part in this movie, but she was very recognizable. She was the only one that had her hair,
Another thing that as we're watching the movie, we see the connection mentally of all those dirty little children stuff made us think of Miri, the Star Trek episode.
Yes. So, and what were the children? I mean, does the city not take care of the children, or these were some outcasts or something?
There are some of the things that we couldn't figure out. Like, okay, so when they escaped and they were on the way to the ice area, they were looking at those pens that once held water, and they said, well, there used to be fish. There used to be fish here. They used to trap fish, and the girl thought it was barbaric that they would do something like that. So I guess we're on the understanding that they were not eating fish or eating meat, something like that. And then, because she couldn't comprehend that concept
of eating meat, or because they're used to eating replicated food.
I guess so, because they couldn't understand why would they hold fish in pens. Why would you do something like that? So they knew something about water. And then when they went in and met Box, he kept saying, I freeze for protein and fish from the sea. And so I'm like, okay, but there was not enough. He goes on to say there weren't any more fish, so he freezes the people. Was he freezing the people to process as feeding everyone inside the city? Like, what
Yeah.
what was the point?
And that's
Did
what,
I miss something?
yeah,
out of
that's
that?
what I wasn't clear on. It looked like, I mean, he had so many frozen people there.
Yes.
I didn't really think he was doing anything with them.
Okay.
And why, and like, how many people go by there anyway? You wouldn't even think a lot of people would go by
So,
there. But
I
they
guess
did
quite
say
a few-
1,000 people are missing, right?
That was it. Yeah, 1,000 people were missing. So we know that there was that underground group that knew about how to get out, and they used the Ankh, the symbol of life in Egyptian history. So I like that they used things that we understood. Okay, in order to live longer, this is the key to life.
And that was interesting too, that when they talked about sanctuary, but they found out sanctuary doesn't exist. I mean, I was kind of thinking they would find it, you know.
Now, see, my understanding was sanctuary was the outside world.
Oh, okay. You're thinking that when they went out, that actually was sanctuary.
Yeah, but then there were so there are certain things that
Yeah.
I found perplexing, and I just said okay, but I very much enjoy. I mean, I think it's a great movie. It was. I used to say when I was younger, when people would say, "What are your favorite science fiction?" I would always throw in Logan's Run, Twilight Zone, because it had so many open-ended things that would make you think. And this movie definitely does make you think, especially if you're younger.
Especially if you're, I think when you're a child, though, you're not really thinking as much about dying at 30, because you do think 30 is old when you're a child.
Yes. But once you get to your 20s, you start saying, okay, what do I want to do? And I imagine if you have that cutoff at 30 years old, you're not going to waste time. Time is more precious to you. But it seems like all they did was waste time.
And I think that was part of the idea that you could just live while you're young, just have fun, and then you never have to grow up, basically.
I guess so.
That was what I thought, too, because the Sandmen, to me, just acted so immature at the beginning. All they did was laugh and make jokes all the time. They were just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And another Star Trek episode I thought of was Half Alive, where they had the
Next
society.
Generation.
Yes.
Yes.
The society where the people did have to basically die at a certain age, even though it was much older. It was 50 or 60
I
to
think
them,
that was
but,
influenced by this, by far, yes.
Yes.
Yep. That was a great one.
And there was a movie, Free Enterprise, that was about Star Trek fans. And in that movie, the main character he was turning 30, and so he had these sort of nightmares about being on Logan's Run because he was turning 30. So there have been
a lot of crossover, a lot of
references.
references. Now, what did you think about when they met the old man and he kept saying quotes that were from Cats? Now, I know that poem from Cats the Musical. When I was younger, I didn't know what that was, but now I realize, oh my goodness, that's the poem all about Mr. Mistopheles or Rum Tum Tugger, or he just kept going on.
Yeah,
Gus.
That was funny. He had all these cats, and he liked quoting cats and everything. He was an interesting character too. I mean, and it is strange. Like, what? So he had lived all that time with his parents, and then his parents died, and then he was by himself, and he was the only person left outside of their city.
Yeah, they never really explained what happened. Like, why is he the only survivor? What happened?
Yeah, it is strange. Yes.
Everything was intact.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was overgrown, but it wasn't like bombs hit it. It wasn't destroyed. All the fixtures were there. Well, like in Planet of the Apes, the Statue of Liberty either was broken or the tides ran so high, and which I don't know if that could happen, but the Earth got higher over the statue.
Right.
Either way, this was Washington, D.C. as we would know it, just overgrown. The mall was a swamp,
that is true. Yes.
right? Interesting that when they were going through the pictures, and they never gave the old man a name. He was just referred to, even in the credits, as Old Man. But they actually had a picture of President Nixon. And they were going to say something along the lines of, oh, look, they used to call him Tricky something. But then they felt that this would be too controversial. So that was a throwaway that we missed.
And I guess the man didn't really need a name. if he was the only one there. I mean, there was nobody to call him something.
What did you think about the scene with the plastic surgery?
Oh yeah, so they all get different faces.
Yeah, that's an option. You can change your face or your body.
And that was an episode of Twilight Zone too, where the people could choose their face. And the fact that the people had a number with their name, like Logan 6. I mean, where did that come from? Was that the number of generations of Logans? And
I don't know. Good question. I don't know. I mean, I like this movie so much because of that. There are so many things I don't really know, don't understand. So we know that there's some kind of backstory, there's kind of back history that you just have to accept.
And so with the plastic surgery, yeah, they can make themselves look younger. Mm-hmm. Even though, I mean, why would you? I mean, like, the state knows when you have to die anyway, so you can't change when you're going to die. But they could still make themselves look younger just for fun. Mm-hmm. And the idea that this was a utopian society, so you have to give up something. So basically, I think that was the idea of having to die younger. I mean, they don't want to have to take care of old people, so they let people die at a young age while they're still able to get around. They don't need any, handicap appliances or anything. But mm-hmm. in order to have that utopian society, they're not allowed to live as long.
Yes. What did you think about the costumes in the movie?
They were fun. I mean, it was just the simple dress that Jessica wore. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, isn't it funny? They, like the ordinary citizens, wore the light colors and the sheer flowing things, but the Sandmen had to wear the tight costumes, and they looked like they were a lot hotter in theirs,
Yep. But it was the stark contrast.
Yes, and it was just so you could tell who was who. Mm-hmm. I think it worked for the movie because the Sandmen were supposed to be like policemen, and it did kind of look like a uniform.
Oh, and then they had the cleanup men as well, and they wore gray with the black stripe.
Yes.
So, I think that's interesting. A society where you have some expression with styles, but the colors would be based on your life, unless you were of the cleanup crew or the Sandman.
Yes. You don't have that much leeway in what you want to wear.
Now, I did like all the set miniatures. I don't want to say it's a lost art, but we don't see that in movies as much. Even though there are points where you know that they're miniatures, there's a certain charm to them, and I think that goes back to the Harry Hanshausen or the Jerry Anderson type movies where there's something special about miniatures and how they look.
So I mean that's a common thing in Hollywood, using the miniatures to get a certain look. Mm-hmm. And it looked good in this movie. In the city, it was supposed to look like an advanced society, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Monorails, and that's what we were trained to think, especially when going to Epcot when we were younger. This is the world of tomorrow. This is how we're all going to get around. Now, what did you think about the scene at the end where everyone was raising their hands because they were so excited to leave the city and meet the old man?
Yeah, now at first, when Logan and Jessica were trying to yell at the people about like don't go to the carousel, and they didn't want to pay attention. But in order to make them pay attention, they had to say something else like we've been outside the city and we brought someone with us. And so then all the people rushing out, I think they just rushed out because they could, right? Because they really weren't free to go anywhere before. And because everything was falling apart too, right? So they all run out, and then we find out, like, one of the people, like all the people raising their hands, and there was some guy that actually did the Vulcan salute, which I didn't notice when I watched the movie, but apparently it was there.
People took screenshots of it. It happened. You got to look for it. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not going to be very evident, but then when you see the screenshot of it, it's not an accident. Let's talk about the Vulcan salute at the end of the movie.
There was a guy who said that I mean, he threw that in because he wanted to be able to see himself in the movie. That was the way that he could find himself and tell his friends, I'm the one doing the Vulcan salute. Even though, and it was really just the back of his head, but you could see his hand sticking up there. And he was afraid that that part might get cut out because if the editors noticed it, they might have cut it out. But I guess they didn't. So it was pretty cool. They had this Trekkie in there who just wanted to throw that in.
Mm-hmm. I thought that is so neat to know that.
Yes.
Now, this was the first movie to use the Dolby stereo on 70mm film prints. I think that's pretty neat. The soundtrack, it had that air of subtlety to it, but everything about the soundtrack fit the movie.
It all fit in. It was very good, and of course Jerry Goldsmith is good. And they also made a short-lived comic book series based on this too,
which we have. Yes. And I'm a big fan of, especially when I was younger. I felt a need to get the comic book adaptions of movies, especially because we didn't have VCRs. So it was a way to relive the movie, essentially.
Yes.
With the Star Wars comics, the Star Trek comics, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, I could go on and on. For Your Eyes Only. If there was and Marvel tended to do more of them. For whatever reason, DC was doing more TV shows. Like DC made the A-Team adaptation, the V adaptation. But that was a Marvel Comics series. I mean, we need to review that, essentially. We're going through so much 1976 stuff. Because of reading all these awesome articles in Starlog, who knows, might be. TV series. It was a short-lived TV series that spawned out of this in 1977.
And I used to watch that. Well, I mean, I didn't watch the series when it came on. I watched it in reruns later, and I really enjoyed it. And it was sad to me. It only really lasted a few episodes, but it had Gregory Harrison as the star, and he was great. And I thought the TV series was really great, but oh well, some people I guess didn't like it. It didn't last.
What did you think about the Sandman's guns? They were used by little cartridges of butane gas. They had I don't know, a very unique aspect to them. Would you say? Instead of having lasers, they just had an explosion upon the target.
Yeah, that was different. Well, doesn't that seem like to be like a way to save on special effects?
That's what I thought that was too. But
yeah.
I did like that there was some kind of flashes coming out the sides of it around the barrel.
And the way they showed a body disintegrating, that was interesting too.
Oh yeah. That's why you need the cleanup crew.
Yes.
Which, now that we're talking about it, which makes more sense about when they went outside. And outside the Lincoln Memorial, and they were looking at the tombstones. They have no tombstones. They don't have mausoleums or memorials or anything to mark deaths. Because the cleanup crew would take the ashes and just, get rid of them, right? There's no memorial service for runners.
Right.
So something else about this society.
There was no remorse for the people who were runners. I mean, they were like criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole society basically was run by a computer. And so when that computer, got confused at the end and basically self-destructed, then there was nothing else to run the city anymore. And that's when the people were free to leave.
Yes. Yep. Did you notice in the credits that we call her Farrah Fawcett, but at the time Farrah Fawcett-Majors?
Yes, because she was married to Lee Majors at the time.
Mm-hmm. And think about it, $6 Million Man was a popular show at that time. She was even on an episode of $6 Million Man.
Yeah, she was.
I mean, I'm so glad that we watched this movie and rewatched it again. Definitely one of the best science fiction movies. We have to ask ourselves, when we rewatch it now, do we still enjoy it? Does it hold up to one of the pillars of classic sci-fi?
I think it's still entertaining now. The look of it, and the story, and because it has that type of setting where it isn't really dated, because it's just something that looks completely different.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Have for years, and I will continue to recommend it.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.